He was just buying groceries. Milk, bread, coffee. The kind of shopping trip that happens 1,000 times a day in small-town America. Nothing special. Nothing memorable. Until someone said his name. And everything stopped. Welcome to the Human Stories. Before we begin this powerful story of forgotten heroism, invisible impact, and a debt that took 50 years to repay, tell me in the comments, from which city are you watching today? And if you believe stories like this deserve to be told, hit that subscribe button. Because some debts are never forgotten. It was a Tuesday morning in Kenton, Ohio. The kind of morning where the sky was gray, but not threatening. Cold, but not freezing. Just ordinary. Robert Kane pushed his shopping cart slowly through the produce section of Miller's Market. The same store he'd been coming to for 20 years. The same route through the aisles. Bananas, lettuce, tomatoes, that never quite tasted like the ones from his childhood. He was 70 years old. White hair, neatly combed. A flannel shirt tucked into worn jeans. Work boots that had outlasted 3 factory jobs. His hands were steady but scarred. Small white lines across his knuckles. A darker mark on his left palm that he never talked about. He moved like a man who had learned patience the hard way. Not slow because he had to be. Slow because rushing had stopped mattering decades ago. The store wasn't crowded. A few mothers with young children. An elderly couple arguing quietly about which cereal to buy. A teenager restocking shelves with headphones in, moving to music no one else could hear. Bobby turned down the bread aisle. Reached for whole wheat. The cheap kind. The kind that lasted. That's when he heard it. Not loud. Not dramatic. Just a voice. Quiet. Uncertain. Mr. Kane? Bobby paused. His hand still on the bread. He turned slowly. A young man stood at the end of the aisle. Mid-30s. Clean cut. Wearing a button-down shirt and khakis. Holding a basket with a single banana and a bottle of water. His eyes were wide. Not scared. Something else. Disbelief. Bobby squinted. The way you do when someone looks familiar, but your memory can't quite place them. I'm sorry, Bobby said, his voice soft, gravelly. Do I know you? The young man took a step closer. His hands were shaking slightly. No, sir. You don't, but I know who you are. Bobby tilted his head. Polite, patient, the way he'd been his whole life. I think you have me confused with someone else. Son, the young man shook his head slowly. His eyes were starting to glisten. Robert Kane, Army, Combat Medic. 101st Airborne, Vietnam, 1968 to 1970. Bobby's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. A door he kept locked. That was a long time ago, Bobby said quietly. March 14th, 1969, the young man continued. His voice was steady now, strong. Firebase Ripcord. Ambush. 17 men wounded. You ran into enemy fire. 3 times. You pulled my father out. Under fire. With a bullet in your shoulder. Bobby's hand dropped from the bread. The aisle felt smaller. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder. I don't. Bobby started. Then stopped. He did remember. Not the names. Not the faces, but the weight. The blood. The screaming. The way time slowed when bullets cut through air. The decision that wasn't a decision. Just instinct. Just duty. Your father, Bobby said slowly. What's his name? David Marsh. Bobby's breath caught. He remembered that name, not because of what happened that day, but because of what happened 2 weeks later. A letter. Handwritten. Shaky letters. Delivered to the field hospital. You didn't just save my life. You gave me a future. Thank you. David Bobby had never responded. He didn't know how. He'd done his job. Nothing more. Is he ... Bobby couldn't finish the sentence. The young man smiled. Tears were running down his face now. He's alive, Mr. Kane. He's 72 years old. He has grandchildren. He talks about you. Every year on March 14th. He never forgot. Bobby's legs felt weak. He gripped the shopping cart handle. Not for support. For something real. Something to hold. I'm Dr. Michael Marsh, the young man said. I'm a surgeon. I became a doctor because my father told me what you did. He said you gave him a second chance at life. And I wanted to do the same for others. Bobby's throat tightened. 50. Years. 50 years since that. Day. 50 years since he'd thought about David. Marsh, and here stood his son. Doctor. Because of something Bobby had almost forgotten. I didn't do anything special, Bobby said quietly. I was just doing my job. No, sir, Michael said, stepping closer. You gave my father 50 more years. You gave me a father. You gave my kids a grandfather. You didn't just save one life. You saved all of ours. Bobby didn't know what to say. He'd spent his whole life avoiding moments like this, avoiding credit, avoiding attention, avoiding the weight of what he'd carried. But standing in that grocery store aisle, holding a cart with milk and bread, facing a man who existed because he'd done his job 50 years ago, ... he couldn't avoid it anymore. Can I? Michael's voice cracked. Can I shake your hand? Bobby nodded. Michael stepped forward, extended his hand. Bobby took it. And for the first time in 50 years, Robert Kane let himself feel what he'd done. Not pride, not glory, just ... peace. He's here, Michael said. In town. He's at the hospital. He's been sick. Nothing serious. But he's here. Bobby blinked. Your father's here? Now? Yes, sir. He's been here for 2 weeks. I'm visiting from Boston. I came to see him, and I stopped here to grab something. And then I saw you. Michael's voice shook with emotion. Mr. Kane, would you come see him? Just for a minute. He talks about you. He's looked for you. He never knew if you made it home. Bobby stood there, his cart, his groceries, his routine. 50 years of routine. And now this. I don't know if I should, Bobby said quietly. It's been so long. I'm not the man I was. Neither is he, Michael said. But he'd want to see you. He'd want to say thank you. Bobby looked down at his hands, the scars, the years. Then he looked back at Michael. Okay, he said. Okay? 20 minutes later, Bobby walked through the automatic doors of Canton General Hospital. He'd been here before. When his wife passed, when his brother had surgery, but never like this, never to see a man whose life he'd saved. Michael led him through the hallways, past nurses, past patients, past the smell of antiseptic and the hum of machines keeping people alive. They stopped outside room 314. Michael knocked softly. Dad, someone's here to see you. A voice from inside. Weak but warm. Come in. Michael opened the door. Bobby stepped inside. The man in. The bed looked up. Gray hair. Thin. Older. But his eyes ... his eyes were the same ... sharp. Alive ... and when they landed on Bobby, they widened. Bobby? David's voice was barely a whisper. Bobby nodded. Hello, David. David Marsh sat up slowly, his hands gripping the sheets. You're real, he whispered. I thought maybe I'd imagined you. Bobby walked closer, slowly, like approaching something sacred. I'm real. David's eyes filled with tears. You saved my life. You would have done the same. No, David said firmly. I wouldn't have. I was scared. I was bleeding out. I thought I was dead. And then you were there, dragging me, talking to me, telling me I wasn't allowed to die. Bobby's jaw tightened. He remembered the weight, the blood, the way David had looked at him, eyes wide with fear. You kept your promise, Bobby said quietly. You lived because of you. David reached out his hand. Bobby took it, and for a long moment, neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Some debts don't need words. The story spread, not because Bobby wanted it to, not because David asked for it, but because Michael posted a photo, two old men, holding hands, in a hospital room. The caption, 50 years ago, this man saved my father's life in Vietnam. Today, they met again. Some heroes never ask for recognition, but they deserve it anyway. Within 24 hours, the photo had 100,000 shares. By the next day, the local news picked it up. By the end of the week, the story was national. But Bobby didn't do interviews. He didn't want attention. He went back to his routine: groceries, coffee, quiet mornings. Except now, people recognized him. The cashier at the store, the man at the gas station, the woman at the post office. Thank you for your service. Bobby nodded, polite, humble. But inside, something had changed. For 50 years, he'd carried the weight of what he'd done in Vietnam. Not with pride. With silence, because he didn't know if it had mattered. But now he knew. It had. David Marsh lived, had a family, had grandchildren. Michael became a doctor, saved lives himself. Bobby's actions had rippled forward, through time, through generations, and he hadn't even known. 3 weeks later, Bobby received a letter. It was from David's grandchildren. 8 of them. They'd all written something. Thanked you for saving our grandpa. We wouldn't be here without you. You're our hero. Bobby sat at his kitchen table. The letters spread out in front of him. And for the first time in 50 years, he cried, not because of what he'd done, but because he finally understood. Heroes don't always know they're heroes. They just do what needs to be done. And sometimes, 50 years later, they learned that what they did mattered more than they ever imagined. Robert Kane never went to war for glory. He went because he was called. He saved lives because that was his job. And he came home and lived quietly because that's what you do. But standing in that grocery store aisle, shaking the hand of a man who existed because he'd done his duty. He finally understood. Some debts take a lifetime to repay, but they're never forgotten. So now I ask you, have you ever met someone who changed your life without knowing it? Someone who did something small, something quiet, something they probably forgot about. That you never did? Say their name in the comments. Tell their story. Because here at the Human Stories, we believe the most powerful acts of heroism are the ones nobody sees until someone remembers. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, subscribe and help us honor the quiet heroes who never asked for recognition. We'll see you in the next story. And until then, if you ever see an old man buying groceries, pushing a cart through ordinary aisles, remember, he might have saved the world. And never told anyone.